Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make an Irish chain quilt. Now this is a traditional patchwork pattern. You may have seen single Irish chain, double Irish chain, triple Irish chain, but I'm going to show you how to make a single Irish chain using strip units. So we're going to use 2.5-inch jelly roll strips, and we're going to use Kaffe facet fabrics because they're nice and bright, and that's going to make our traditional patchwork quilt look modern, bright, and fun. Now the Irish chain pattern is made with a 9-patch block and some plain blocks, and those plain blocks are traditionally the background color. But I'm going to spice it up a little bit. I'm going to use some plain blocks that are cut out of this big Kaffe facet print. And that's great because we've got big flowers and lots of different colors, and that will make the quilt look way more interesting. Now the first thing we're going to need is some background strips. These are 2.5-inch strips, and we're going to need 16 of them. Now since this is my pattern, we have it for free on our website. So there will be a link right below the video that says free pattern. Then you can print it off or look at it, and then you can see all the numbers there. Now I'm cutting 8 layers at a time here. I'm using my weight to help hold down my ruler. You may not be comfortable cutting this many layers, and that's okay. Just cut as many as you feel like you can cut successfully and straight. Now we need to select 20 of these strips. And if your jelly roll has a mix of light and darks, you want to use darker ones. You want to have a contrast between these strips and your background. So mine all have a contrast, but I'm just going to pick 20 that I would like to use. Now we've got 2 of this strip, so I'll just use 1 of those. I like that. Not as much. I love that one. So I'm just going to pick up 20 that give me a nice variety, and I won't use duplicates. So there's the 20 strips that I like. Now we're going to make some strip units. We're going to take 2 of the colorful ones and 1 background, and we're going to make 8 strip units. Then we're going to take 2 of the background and 1 colorful, and we're going to make 4 strip units. And don't worry at this point which colors you use, because it doesn't matter at all, because they're all going to get cut up and mixed up afterward. To make the strip unit, we're going to want to use a real careful 1/4-inch seam. So I am going to lay the pieces on top of themselves here, but I'm going to make sure that I don't stretch the top or the bottom as I stitch. And you probably want to use a pretty small stitch length. I've probably got 12 stitches per inch because we're going to cut this up afterwards, and we don't want the stitches to come out when we cut those little pieces out. Now we're going to want to finger press the seam allowance, and we're going to want to press it toward the dark fabric there. So I'm going to kind of open it up with my hands here and then draw my fingernail or the tip of my finger all the way down that seam allowance. And this will make it much easier to iron later on. Now I'm going to just add this other strip to this side here using the same method. And I'm going to finger press the seam allowance again towards the dark fabric. I've got all 8 strip units stitched together here. Now we need to iron these up. So I did finger press it so it's pretty flat, but I'm going to smooth it out with my hands, and then I'm going to use a dry iron. Then I'm going to steam press it a little bit. And then I'm going to make sure it's straight. So I'm going to use a long straight edge. I have a 4-foot stick here. And I'm going to make sure that I don't have it distorted at all. And that will make the patchwork later on much more accurate if I make sure this is straight. Now we need to make the other strip unit, which has 2 of the white and 1 print in the middle. I'm going to again finger press the seam allowance toward the darker print. Then I'm going to add this other white strip onto that side. Now we've got all of these 4 units done, and we also want to iron these up nice and flat. All of the strip units are ironed up nice and flat, and they're all going to get subcut exactly the same way. So each one of these strip units is going to get cut into 2.5-inch strips. So since they're all getting cut the same, you can cut them in bulk if you like. Now here's how I do that. I line up the first unit on one of the lines on my cutting table. Then I grab another one, and I don't put it right on top. I move it up. Let's move it up 1/2 inch. So I've got a line that's 1/2 inch away here on the top. I'm going to line it up this way. Then I'm going to take another one. The reason I'm not lining them up right on top of themselves is because wherever the seam allowances are, it'll get very thick. So this way the seam allowances are in different spots. So there's 3 of them. I can do 3 at a time. If you want to do more and you don't want extra layers, you can always put this one up here. Then we can move another one staggered a little bit higher. So you don't want to stack up more than you're comfortable cutting. But this looks like about the right amount for me. And now I'm just going to take my plastic ruler, and I think I'm going to use the weight again for help. So this will hold it in place. And we'll cut off this jagged edge of stuff here. Then we'll move over 2.5 inches, and we'll keep doing cuts all the way down the whole strip unit. So we'll have a bunch of pieces that are 2.5 inches long. So now all of these are cut, and we've got 2 different stacks of strips here. We've got these that have dark on both ends, so we're going to take 2 of these, just 2 different ones, and then we're going to take one of these that has the background, and we're going to take these 3 units over to the sewing machine. Now these are going to be really easy to stitch together because the seam allowances are all going in opposite directions. So when we stitch this here, we've got the top going that way and the back going that way, and it's going to be really easy to match it up. And now this guy will go on there. So we'll finger press these seams away from the center, and we're going to go ahead and stitch up all our blocks to look exactly like this. Don't worry about which fabric is where, just mix them all up. All the squares are done. Now these are 6.5 inches. So we need to cut some 6.5-inch squares so we can alternate them with the patchwork squares. I'm going to use 2 different Kaffe facet prints that are nice and bright, and then we're also going to need some 6.5-inch squares of the background. I'm starting to lay out the quilt here, and if you just wanted to do a traditional Irish chain, this is what you would do. You would just keep alternating these patchwork blocks and your background blocks. But we're going to add the colorful blocks. So now I'm going to put a row of these guys, and that's going to go all the way up the quilt. Then I'm going to put another row of white, and then I'm going to put another row of the patchwork guys. And so I'm going to keep going like this. Now the row over here is going to be the other Kaffe facet print. So this one's going to go here, and feel free to change this up if you like. So if you don't want all of this print in one row and all of this print in one row, you can switch it like this. You can do every other one, so that would look good as well. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the whole quilt out, get the blocks sewn together, and get it onto the quilting machine. The quilt is on the machine, nice and bright, but I still want to use thread that will blend in. I don't want a lot of thread showing, a lot of color showing in these plain areas. So we could use a nice deep turquoise, but that's going to show quite a bit. Now the yellow, it's going to match well. It's going to blend in. lavender, that's probably my best choice. It's not going to show much in these light areas, and it's also not going to show too much in the very darkest areas, so we'll go with this one. Now for the quilting pattern, I'm going to use this one called Van Gogh. It's abstract, but it's also swirly, and I really like to use curves on a lot of geometric patchwork like we've got in the 9 patch in the Irish chain. Here's the finished quilt. It is nice and big. So this is 90 by 96 inches. So I think that's going to fit on my king size bed at home. I might actually take this one home. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I ended up using 1 yard of the purple accent and 1 yard of the floral accent. And you can just see those chains running throughout the quilt. I only used 20 of the strips for the patchwork and 5 yards of the background. And this would look good with a dark background also, so you don't have to use a white background. Now the quilting, you can see the swirly things here. It's that nice abstract Van Gogh, and you can see the quilting on the back. And I used a nice big Kaffe print on the back also. I do like to use a big scale print on the back whenever I can. So this quilt really did not take that long to stitch up considering how big it is. And the stitching is quite simple. You only have to match the intersections when you're doing these big rows. So a fast project. If you need a big quilt in a hurry, this is a good pattern for you. Thanks for watching our tutorial today on how to make the chain link quilt. We hope you enjoyed it. Now we've got another giveaway. This is a quilt called Shadow Boxes. It's nice and big. I love the bright digital fabrics from Moda. It's got a nice pink back with the quilting showing very nicely. It's got a batik back on it. Now it's very easy to enter the giveaway. All you have to do is click the link below that says giveaway and put in your email address and your name. And we can mail this to any address anywhere in the world. So you could be our next lucky winner. Now, if you like our videos and you want to support us, the best thing you can do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would really help us out. Happy quilting!